What's up everyone, Alex here. Adapting a story or experience from one medium to another is tough work, whether it's adapting comic books to movies, movies into games, or even games to reviews. There's a level of translation that needs to happen where the creator themselves have to determine how much of the original source material has to be represented in the new medium. And if you've ever done something similar in your work, then you know that the responsibility is really challenging. This is the task that Chime Corporation was given when they were told that they're supposed to make a game out of the Made in Abyss anime, which I've been told is one of the darkest animes of recent memory. And in this video, I want to take a look at what approaches these developers took to make this happen, and more importantly, whether or not they were successful with it. But before any of that, I want to let you know that I did my due diligence and not only watched the entire first season of Made in Abyss, but also watched the two movies that summarize the entire season. And the reason for that is that it allows me to understand the kind of choices that the animation studio took to translate the anime TV series into movies. And the results were actually really interesting. Moreover, it allows me to know whether or not the game skips on a bunch of details, and whether or not it captures some of the drama depicted in the anime. And in case you didn't know, Made in Abyss: Binary Star Falling into Darkness is now available on Switch, PS4, and PC, and the footage that you're seeing right now is from the PC version of the game. And I want to thank Spike Chunsoft for providing this review code. The very first thing that I really want to talk about is how the game plays, and I think this is actually the star of this entire experience. But in order to break it down, we kind of need to get into some of its systems. So you have your typical health bar, a hunger bar, and stamina. If you can imagine how hunger works, it basically depletes over time, and you gotta feed yourself so that way your hunger isn't eating away at your life. And the stamina meter allows you to climb rock walls and also attack enemies. When you're climbing up and down walls, it's different than, say, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, and it doesn't continuously tick down while you're actually hanging. This is important to know because any upward movement will potentially trigger the Curse of the Abyss, which is a terrible set, and I repeat, set of status ailments inflicted upon anyone emerging from its depths. Even slightly going up an incline can potentially trigger it. And while this happens, your depth meter will flash and change colors every time you're going up way too fast. It's at these points where you'll have to stop your continued ascent until the curse subsides, as trying to brute force it will have you throwing up everything you ate and cutting your hunger meter in half. If and when you're successful in going back to the town of Orth, you can turn in your relics for appraisal, which gets you money, experience, and skill points to use. The skills you're able to obtain are dependent on the color of your whistle, so you'll have to proceed with the main story to rank up. The general gameplay loop has you exploring the vast areas of the Abyss, broken down into different zones per layer, doing side quests, and venturing further and further down, while upgrading your character's tools and capabilities and crafting things as needed. It seems really simple, but it increases in complexity the further you go. Thankfully, there is no time limit, so there is no day and night cycle, so you can keep exploring as long as you want, provided that you have the provisions to do so. While this all sounds good, there is one major caveat to what I just described, which is, in order to freely explore the Abyss, you are forced to play the Hello Abyss scenario to completion, which is a retelling of Rico and Reg's descent into the Abyss. And if you watch the anime, then you pretty much know the plot. And of course, the next logical question is, does the game tell the story well? And unfortunately, they don't. There is a massive info dump within literally the first few minutes, summarizing what the layers of the Abyss are, in addition to what each of the whistles represent. This is one of those retellings that serve more as an abbreviated summary than a meticulously reconstructed representation of what the anime tries to convey. And unfortunately, I just can't recommend playing this game to folks who are brand new to Made in Abyss, as it takes too many broad strokes in its storytelling, especially at the beginning, which rips the emotion and drama away from the story's more important moments. Important events from the story are done in elaborate QTEs and cutscenes that aren't as impactful as the events depicted in the anime, which I feel doesn't match the quality of the rest of the game. Engaging in Made in Abyss's survival mechanics in Hello Abyss is extremely limited, despite it serving as a tutorial for the rest of the game. For example, you cannot buy new skills here, though there are some upgrades that are already present. And because of the nature of its story, you cannot go back to Orth in order to evaluate any relics that you pick up, which means that picking up any of those during Hello Abyss is completely useless, and will only take up much needed inventory space. That said, Reg is supposed to make up for all of these limitations, though he seems to get stuck in geometry a lot, which makes him useless for a good period of time. Hello Abyss took me about 3 hours to finish, and the story just ends right before Rico ventures into the third layer. Hello Abyss also had me skipping through a bunch of story sequences due to the quality of the storytelling. Because to me, the real meat and potatoes of the game lies in its Deep in Abyss mode, where you play as a custom-created cave raider with the goal of becoming a legendary White Whistle. And this is the mode where everything that I talked about at the beginning of this video applies. And best of all, it actually has an all-original story, but it does kind of intertwine with Rico's story a little bit. And what's actually really cool about Deep in Abyss is that it actually tells the story way better than Hello Abyss, because you are experiencing what it's like to be a cave raider going down into the abyss every single day to make ends meet. And because of the characters that they introduce alongside you, the more tragic events that happen hit a lot harder. And keep in mind, a lot of people have told me that Made in Abyss is a dark, dark anime, and I really felt it playing through this mode. I think what's also really cool is that even though the mood of the game is pretty dark for the most part, there are moments of levity that are both welcome and surprising, and it never undercuts the tone of the game. With regards to the way that it looks, admittedly, the level design leaves something to be desired. It's very plain, especially when you compare to other games, but I feel like the character models themselves are very well done. I think they're actually really well rendered, and I'm really impressed with the way that they light the characters sometimes, especially while I'm exploring the abyss. Predominantly, the story is being told through visual novel style windows, so they're not really trying anything new here. And of course, as I said, there are more elaborate cutscenes that play, although I have to say that some of the cutscenes in Deep in Abyss are a lot better than Hello Abyss, which kind of makes me think that Hello Abyss was probably tacked on top of this, which is kind of a strange decision if that was the case. The music is also surprisingly really good, and it really complements the experience quite well, in fact. And I have to say that after playing Deep in Abyss for several hours, the gameplay loop is actually very addicting to me. Because even though you're venturing up and down the abyss, gathering items, leveling up, doing quests, cataloging creatures, there's actually a lot to do within the base gameplay structure that I mentioned. Also, one of the better parts of the game is that it has both English and Japanese voice acting, which features the original anime cast. Now, I tried the English voice acting a little bit, and a lot of you know me. I'm typically not that picky when it comes to English voice acting. But in this particular case, I felt that the style of voice acting they did in the game leans a bit too much on the childish side, and I know that sounds really silly because you do play as children, but I do feel that there's a better way to depict children outside of the typical, "Hi guys," like that sort of voice acting and stuff. So I went with the Japanese, and I had a much better experience taking in the story with that cast. That being said, I do feel that the game is aimed towards fans of the anime. So if you're thinking of checking out Made in Abyss Binary Star Falling into Darkness and you've never watched the anime, I highly recommend checking out the anime over the video game, as you'll get a lot more of the drama and immerse yourself more into the world by doing that. A little bit of behind the scenes talk. I started this review a bit down on the game, but really, after finally getting through Hello Abyss and unlocking Deep in Abyss mode, I actually started really liking my experience with it. In fact, I think that's what I'm gonna do right after I finish this video. There's just something addicting about gathering items and exploring vast areas that Made in Abyss does pretty well. And I think having an appreciation for the anime and the story that they're trying to tell with that is really going to complement your experience of the video game. At any rate, I want to hear what you think. Post your thoughts in the comments below and let's talk about it. And if you're new to the channel and you love RPGs, Japanese games, indie titles, and more, please consider subscribing to the channel. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.